Cooke started off life as part of William Taylor's company called Taylor, Taylor & Hobson. His company started in 1886, and the first Cooke lenses appeared in 1893. And we've been involved with the film business, frankly, from the get-go. We serviced George Eastman, and in fact, when Eastman was going to start Kodak, before he did in 1889, he came over to talk to William Taylor about lens making. And for up until the First World War, we supplied Kodak with most of their lenses. So we've got a long and storied history in the film business. The original name Cooke actually has an interesting story behind it. There was a company up in York, England, called T. Cooke & Sons, and they made telescopes. But their chief designer, a guy named Dennis Taylor, he was a photographer and a lens designer, and he created what came to be called the Cooke triplet. And back in the early days of photography, you've seen all those old photographs. They all vignette around the edges. And the reason is to get a photograph sharp all the way to the edges, you'd have to shoot through a pinhole camera, f/64 or smaller. And Dennis Taylor came up with this arrangement of glass that allowed you to shoot basically wide open and get detail all the way to the edge of a photograph. And this arrangement of glass became called the Cooke triplet. And it has no real application in telescopes. So the people at T. Cooke & Sons took this invention down to their friends, the Taylor brothers down in Leicester, and said, "You want to use this in photographic lenses?" And of course, they're being smart guys, said, "You bet." And part of the deal was that any lens made using this arrangement would be called a Cooke lens. And hence, that's where our name comes from. But if you think about it, the lens you're shooting with and every modern lens today has some system of the Cooke triplet in it, because they all have detail all the way to the edge, wide open. So, I mean, Cooke has been pioneering in this industry for a long time. In the early days, and that would be the pre-sound days, it really almost didn't matter what you shot with, although we have letters in the file from most of the famous players, Mansky, studios were made on Cooke lenses. Charlie Chaplin was shot on Cooke lenses. Mary Pickford was shot on Cooke lenses. I mean, we were really all over the place in both England and in Hollywood. When sound came in, there was a real problem, because it didn't really matter how fast the lenses were in the pre-sound days. They either lit sets like we are now with sunlight, or they lit with carbon arc lights. They have two pieces of carbon, a thin piece and a thick piece, an anode and a cathode, and they put them pretty close together and they jump a lot of electricity through them. They're very noisy, and they're very dirty because the carbon's burning off. Well, again, on the silent film, who cares? But when sound came in, you can't have the carbon arc light on the set. It's just forget the smoke and the dirt, it's just too noisy. And you can imagine the state of incandescent lighting around 1920s, pretty primitive. So the industry really needed a fast lens. And in the old days, Taylor Hobson made lenses for everything. Still cameras, motion picture, projectors, you name it, we made lenses for it. We had just developed a set of lenses for stills called Series O. And they were pretty fast. They were f2. And in those days, that was pretty fast. Couldn't give these things away, because the still guys didn't want to pay an extra 5 or 10 pounds or to get my f3.5 lens, I just use a little more flash powder or another half-second exposure. I don't need to spend the extra money for an f2. But the guys at Cooke were pretty smart. When the sound came in, they took the Series O, converted them from still to motion picture use, and created the speed Panchros. You're hard-pressed to find a film that was shot anywhere. We made the speed Panchros from the 1920s up through 1965. And especially in the first 30 or 40 years of sound, you'd be hard-pressed to find a film that did not have Cooke lenses on it. I mean, we do have some letters in the studios that say, Sweet Panchros made talking movies possible.